All right, intercept form. Okay, listen very carefully. Notes will seem like they're almost the same. Why? Because every day I do what? I add to it, right? There's a reason why they look like they're the same, because I'm just adding. We have to take baby steps along the way. So we started out with just GCF, then we did factor, then we put them together, right? Factor special products, factor and solve means do all this, but then equal it to 0. Intercept form is going to have something to do with probably all the stuff we've done. Okay? We got to go baby steps because we're going to end up going to graphing. Graphing is going to take us like a whole half a page to a page of work. So we have to take baby steps to get there. Okay? So intercept form. All right, so how do I write a function in intercept form? You okay there, Alyssa? All right, function. What is a function? A function is a relation. Have you heard the word function before? Yeah. Yes, you did in IM1. A function is a relation where each domain, which one's domain? Which one's domain?
Oh, the middle number? Median?
Nope. Wrong.
Median?
She was right. She was right on median, but that's not what we're doing. There are no statistics here.
It sounds familiar.
Yes, because I taught this part.
Okay.
Yes, but which is which? What is domain?
Is it range like minimum?
No. That is range when you're dealing with statistics. We're not dealing with statistics. We're dealing with graphs.
What does that send as? Let's say.
Your domain is your x values.
Oh, that's what it is.
And they have exactly one range, which are your y values. Function is written in the terms of f of x. We use functions to graph. Does it have to be f of x? No. It can be g of x, h of x, p of x, q of x. It doesn't really matter. I can do h of t. Okay? Usually if we throw in another variable instead of x, we're talking about a certain restriction. So if I throw in t, we're usually talking about time. If I throw in h, I'm talking about height. Okay? In IM3 right now, we're talking about s of d and d of s. S stands for speed and d stands for distance. All right? So you can still write the functions based on whatever your variables are, as long as you write it in function notation. In other words, a variable, comma, or parentheses, another variable. Okay? What it means is the function in terms of x. Okay? So if I threw in another variable, so like s and d, it's speed in terms of distance. Okay? So it's kind of like, it's just whatever it's talking about. So we have intercept form. We have intercept form. But before we go into intercept form, let's talk about what does it mean to be an intercept. So let's write the definition of intercept first before I go into intercept form. What does it mean to be an intercept? Where your graph, let's use the word graph because it's not a line, where your graph what? Meets or crosses the y-axis or the x-axis, right? So it's where the graph meets the axes. Axes is just plural for more than one axis. It's either x or it's y. Okay? It's either x or it's y. Now, intercept form, we're actually going to write out intercept form. Intercept form is in terms of x. Okay? So intercept form is in terms of x. What does that mean? It looks like this. F of x equals a times x minus p times x minus q. Have you seen something like that? You actually have. Yeah. F of x is just represented as your function. What variable does f of x represent? Your y. Very good. You learned something. A. You don't know this one. Okay, what is it? I don't think. A is your direction. A is your direction. In other words, today it's our GCF. No, which way you're pointing? I don't think we did. This piece here represents your x-intercepts. I'm going to show you how to solve for them, but it does represent your x-intercepts, okay? But I'm going to show you how to solve for them instead of just memorizing, because memorizing doesn't help us. If we understand what it means to be an x-intercept, then we can find them no matter what. Okay? All right, so what's the definition of x-intercept? What does it mean to be an x-intercept? That's slow. What? Say it again. I can't hear you. It meets at the x-axis. It's the points, or in this case, points. Why can it be more than one? Did you do your task? The one we did in class together, yeah? Your quadratics. Do you remember plugging in points? Do you remember how many times it touched the x-axis? Twice. Touched it twice. So it's the point or points on the x-axis where the graph touches. It can be up to 2 times. In other words, I can touch the x-axis 1 time, no times, or 2 times. Okay? I don't even have to touch the x-axis. That's 0 times. It can be 0, 1, or 2, but cannot be greater than 2. Do you understand? Why? Because your power is a what? Squared. Okay? So since we have squared, you only can touch it 2 times max. Can't touch it more than that. But it can be up to 2 times. In other words, it doesn't have to touch it at all. Then it could touch it up to how many times? Yeah. Let's talk about x-intercept. How do we write an x-intercept? Wonderful. How do we write the ordered pair? So what goes what?
Your x goes first.
What's your y? Or what's your x?
You know, here changes. You do
Which part changes?
the
Okay, the x changes, but what's your y then?
0.
Thank you. Bless you. So x comma 0. In other words, your y is 0.
Is it always 0?
Yep. In other words, f of x is 0. Why is f of x 0? Because f of x is what? It's your y. Yeah. So since the y is 0, your f of x is 0. Okay? You've done this before, yes? Yeah. Pretty sure you did. Listen, I'm pretty sure you did it in my class. I know. Y-intercept. What's it mean to be a y-intercept? There is no b here. It's the point where what? Good. The point on the y-axis where the graph touches. How many times can you hit the y-axis? Once. Why?
Because,
It is only one time. What is the definition of a function? Where each x value has exactly what?
1.
One y value. So what x value are you if you're on the y-axis? What's your x? It's 0. So if you're on the y-axis, your x is 0, right? So what the definition of function says is when I plug in 0 for x, I should only get how many answers? 1. So how many times can you be on the y-axis? Just once. And we just said your x is what?
0.
Your x is 0. So if x is 0, how do we write that ordered pair? 0, y. Good. This one showed me f of x is 0. How do I write this one? F of 0 equals what? A number. Whatever my y value is. Y is 0 going here? Because it's x. Very good. That's on your x-intercept. You gotta speak louder. I'm hearing you over the projector and Tyler and Jaime.
So for your x-intercept, y is always 0.
Uh-huh.
And for your y-intercept, x is always 0.
Yep. Okay. We good? Let's do it. All right, f of x equals x squared plus x minus 2. All right, let's go to the top really quick. We were given f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. We talked about this, yes? This is called standard form. Didn't we talk about this before we factored? In the very beginning, right? When we added in stuff, we said it had to be in standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. If I want to go from standard form to f of x equals a times x minus p times x minus q, which is intercept form. How do you think you're going from here to here? How do you think you're going to go from here to here? What if I wrote it with numbers? How am I going to go from here to here? ABC, which is what? It's your factor. So we're going to factor. Good. We need a factor. So the first step is right here, number 1. We're going to find intercept form. In order to find intercept form, we have to factor. Do you know how to factor? Most of you do. So factor. What's A? B? C? On top of your x? On the bottom? Sides? Good. Yeah? Okay. X squared, negative 1x, positive 2x, and negative 2. X squared and 2x have what in common? X squared and 2x? X. Negative 1 and negative 2? Negative 1. X squared and 1x? And 2 and negative 2? Positive. All right. We have x plus 2 and x minus 1, yeah? Okay. In the front, you should have all this little thing called f of x. Intercept form right here. For the first part. But yeah, that's it. So should we know how to do that? Wonderful. All right, second part. Oh, what do my notes say today? What other definition did I give? X-intercepts. X-intercepts. How do we do x-intercepts again? We wrote it. How do you do x-intercepts? This is where you have to learn how to read your notes, guys. We wrote it. How do you do x-intercepts? What do you plug in? For what? Okay. Angel says y is 0. Okay. So now what? What's representative y here? What's y here?
Oh,
Tell me what to write then, Alyssa. So,
x plus 2 equals 0, right?
before that step, because I need to show my work. If I say y is 0, where do I put that? Let's try this in this function. What is representative of y? I think 2 of you know and just aren't saying it. F of x. Thanks, Alex. So 0 equals x plus 2 and x minus 1, yeah? Okay. Then what do I do?
X plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0.
Yeah, this looks like last week's notes.
And then minus 2.
So x is what? And x is what? Okay. And then I write what?
Parentheses, -2, comma, 0, 1,
And these are my what?
order.
They're my x-intercepts, yeah? Do I know how to do that? Yeah, did I learn that last week? Yeah. It's called putting things what? Together. Third step. Yep. We got to find that y-intercept. How do we find y-intercept? Plug in 0 for what? Into x. So now I say x is 0. So how do I write that out? I think you told me earlier. On the other side of my paper, it tells us. How do we do it? F of 0, very good. F of 0 equals. In other words, wherever I see x, I'm putting in what? 0, that's what that says. So I'm going to write 0 plus 2 and 0 minus 1. True statement? Yeah, all I'm doing is plugging in 0 wherever I see x. Could I have done it in the original function? Yes, but I want to stick with y. I could have, but I want to stick with intercept form for today. So then what's 0 plus 2? 2. And what's 0 minus 1? Negative 1. Am I adding or multiplying? Multiplying. Some of you added on your test. So what's 2 times negative 1? Negative 2. How do I write that as an ordered pair? 0, comma, negative 2. This here is your y-intercept. Eventually, not today. I need you to know how to solve it before we can graph it. Because there's more to graphing than just that. A little bit. We okay? Makes sense so far. Okay, so you're going to do one by yourself. Before you actually go to step 2, because you're going to label it, step 1 is intercept form, step 2 is x-intercept, step 3 is y-intercept, right? Before you get to step 2, you're going to check with your partner to make sure you factored it correctly. Because if you don't factor it correctly, the next 2 parts are wrong. Right, the whole problem's wrong. So you're going to factor first, check with your neighbor, and then you can keep going after that. Got it? So here's your function. F of x equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. F of x equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. Did you, yeah. Ready? We should have factored at least, yes? Okay, let's double check to make sure we factored correctly, because if you can't do that, then the problem's wrong. Oops, number 1. A is what? 1. B is what? 8. And C is? 15. On top of your X is? 15. On the bottom is? Sides? 5 and 3. Or 3 and 5. All right, so then we put it in our box. X squared plus 3x plus 5x and plus 15, yes? All right, what does x squared and 5x have in common? Good. 3x and 15. Positive 3. X squared and 3x? And 5x and 15. Positive or negative? Good. So our intercept form is f of x equals x plus 5 and x plus 3. Yes? Who had that right? Good. If you can factor, you can do the rest, hopefully. All right, step 2, I'm going to squeeze it up here, is x-intercepts. True? Okay, let's do x-intercepts. So x-intercept means we do what? Plug in 0 for y. So I write what? No, I don't. You need to write your full step first, Alyssa, before I mark you wrong. 0 equals x plus 5 times x plus 3. Then you can break it up into 2 equations. If you don't do this step, you're what? You're wrong, because you're not showing me that you know what it means to be a y-intercept. You're just skipping steps and being lazy. All right, here, what do we get? Negative 5 and negative 3. Good. Ordered pairs? And? Good. Good so far? Last one is what? Y-intercept. Which means we plug in what? F of 0. Very good. Equals 0 plus 5 and 0 plus 3. What's 0 plus 5? What's 0 plus 3? And what do you get? F of 0 equals 15. Ordered pair? 0, 15. I need to label all my stuff so I know what I'm talking about. All right, so this is intercept form, this is x-intercepts, this is y-intercept. Did anyone have it all right? How many of you were on the verge, but I stopped you? Good. Questions? Okay, listen very carefully. Your homework looks exactly like this. It asks you to find the intercept form. It says write an intercept form, find the x-intercepts, find the y-intercept. You're going to do step 1, step 2, step 3. Do you understand? Okay. The second thing is this. Some of them are not trinomials, which means they're not how many terms? They're not 3 terms. Sometimes we have a binomial. How many are in a binomial? 2. Do we always have to take the square root of it? No. Sometimes it's just what do they have in common? Okay? Remember that. Because like number 3 looks like that. Yes? These did not have GCFs. Could I have a GCF? Yeah. Yes, I could. Your homework is on paper, folded into 4 boxes or in half, depending on how big you write. So you can either fold in half if you're a really large writer. If you're just a decent writer, fold in 4s because these are kind of long. Okay? 10.